I'm sure heading into Sunday's matchup at Soldier Field, both the Cincinnati Bengals and Chicago Bears look at this game on their schedule, have it circled, and say, that's a win. And honestly, both of these teams probably could feel somewhat justified in thinking that. Even though it's only week 2 and we're now dealing with a 17-game season, the cool thing about the NFL is you can argue every regular season game really truly does matter, carry some weight and some significance. And for both teams, that is certainly the case on Sunday. For the Cincinnati Bengals, they started off the season with a win against the Minnesota Vikings. That thrilling game last week, choked up a lead late, but got the win, got it done. Last play of overtime, game-winning field goal, beating Minnesota 27-24. Joe Burrow is back. He looked okay, throwing for 267 yards and 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon also back, and he looked really nice, 29 carries for 127 rushing yards and a touchdown. Jamar Chase, the 5th overall pick. A lot of Bengals fans thought, you got to draft an offensive lineman. Well, Jamar Chase had a nice day with 5 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Don't get me wrong, the offensive line is obviously concerned as they gave up 5 sacks. Burrow faced plenty of pressure on Sunday against a less than stellar Vikings defense. Also concerning a bit for the Bengals, their defense gagged up a 10-point fourth quarter lead, which allowed the game to ultimately get to overtime. You would have liked to have seen this team be able to finish that game at home, but it took them to the end of overtime to get the W. I will say, in defense of that defense of Cincinnati a little bit, they did a decent job of containing Dalvin Cook. They didn't dominate him, but he didn't go off and have a big day. I think he had like 20 carries for 60 yards, something like that. So respectable yards per carry average allowed. Did a good job of forcing Kirk Cousins and the Vikings to beat them through the passing attack. And you look at this game for the Bengals, you say, okay, if they can go on the road and they can beat Chicago, for whatever that's worth, they will be starting the season off 2-0. And 2-0 is a pretty good place to be. It's as good as you could be through 2 weeks. So you can see the importance of this game for the Bengals. Meanwhile, the Bears. Why does the NFL continue to want to do this to us? Why does NBC continue to sign off on this? I get the media market crap, but every year that Bears-Rams primetime Sunday night, Monday night matchup, doesn't matter when it is, it's always a shit fest. It sucks, it's boring, and the Bears go out there year in and year out and play like crap, specifically on offense. Why the hell would you do that to the rest of America? To the surprise of nobody that should have been paying attention, the Bears went on Sunday night football and got creamed by the Rams. Even though it didn't feel like a true shellacking, you knew early on that the Bears really didn't have much of a chance in this one. They lost 34-14. I mean, what more can you say? The offense did exactly what you would expect under noontime Nagy. Bunch of short, conservative passing plays, lack of consistency with sticking with the running game, just questionable decisions after questionable decisions, lots of really dumb stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, what the hell did you expect Andy Dalton to do with this offense? Some of these Bears fans saying, oh, he was fine. He was fine. Was he really, though? And if that's fine, that just speaks to how low and pathetic the standard is when it comes to the Chicago Bears and the quarterback position. Now, the offense wasn't a total waste because David Montgomery had a beastly performance. The numbers, the 16 carries, 108 yards, touchdown, you look at that and you say, okay, that was a good game, but it wasn't that dominant. When you look at the number of tackles he broke and the physicality with which he ran, he had a dominant performance Sunday night. Let's not get it twisted. Certainly in year 3, looks like he's poised to have a great year. The only hamstring, of course, is going to be Matt Nagy, which is so often the case with this offense. But the offense wasn't the only problem here. As easy as it is to focus on the offense, it's that defense that's overrated as shit that I've been talking about for a couple of years. This type of crap was coming. They were even worse. Blown coverages, missed tackling abound. I mean, they gave up 34 points to the Rams, and even the Rams in that game didn't look all of that impressive. So imagine if they were clicking on all cylinders. They might have put up 48 or a 50 spot on the Bears defense. That defense was atrocious. One positive sign maybe is Justin Fields got his first career touchdown run, but he was limited to a gimmicky bullshit, Matt Nagy's an idiot type of role. So now you've got this team that had, I guess, some reason of expectations, even though it wasn't very realistic or connected with reality, starting a veteran quarterback because they want to be stubborn about their decision that they made before the season. So the Bears have to win this game. They have to. You got to justify what you've done. The one benefit, I guess, if you're looking at this as a Bears organization or Bears fans, is that nobody in the damn NFC North won. So the worst position you could be in after 2 weeks if you win is a tie for first. Keeping the playoff hopes alive. Oh, Christ almighty. But when you look at this, the Bengals were not a good team last year, hence why they had the 5th overall pick. And yeah, they won in week 1, but you look at the team that they beat, the Vikings aren't exactly great. They gagged up a double-digit fourth quarter lead and had to win on the last play of overtime. The Bears are a team that have owned the Minnesota Vikings the past few years. So there are certainly reasons for the Bears to look at this and say, hey, you know what? It's Andy Dalton's second revenge game against the Bengals. Maybe he'll do well here. There's reasons the Bears could legitimately believe that they could win. You know, the Bengals offense is not the Rams offense. Some important data as you're kind of thinking through how this game could play out. The Bears are 3-5 versus the AFC since 2019. That's a less than stellar record. 3-5 at home in 2020. So you look to home field advantage and you look to being able to defend your home turf and having that be the basis and foundation for what you do in the regular season. And under Noontime Nagy, they didn't do that last year. If you can't defend your home field, what the hell are you expected to really do? So the Bengals should not have a ton of fear going into that third-rate stadium that is Soldier Field, because they could say the Bears aren't intimidating here. The crowd's not intimidating. Nothing about this is scary, and they'd be absolutely right to think so. Also, of note, the Bears are currently 3-point favorites here. The Bengals were 9-7 covering the spread in 2020, and they had a number of games that they, had backdoor covers, etc., kept it close and competitive. But this is a team you don't want to sleep on with Joe Burrow in year number 2, some improved weapons on the offensive side of the ball, notably Jamar Chase. This is a Bengals team that can jump up and bite you if you're overlooking them. Perhaps for the Bears, you'd be looking over them even more if you had managed to win week 1 against the Rams, because you'd be thumping your chest and feeling all full of yourself, and then that's when it would be truly dangerous. But this is a tough spot. In terms of keys to victory, I look at the Bengals first. They've got to press Allen Robinson at the line of scrimmage. The Bears did a shitty job, as per usual, of getting their most important offensive weapon, or I should say their best offensive weapon, Allen Robinson, involved in the passing game. His route structure, most of his routes were short. He got targeted 9 times, but it was all short shit. Really dumb deploying and utilization of Allen Robinson. But there are opportunities here for week 2 for the Bears against this Cincinnati Bengals secondary, specifically what they do from a philosophical standpoint. A lot of zone coverage, a lot of more so off-man coverage that allows a guy like Allen Robinson a free release off the line of scrimmage, which is why Adam Thielen had a big day last Sunday against this Bengals defense. Had 90 receiving yards, I think it was, and 2 touchdowns, because the Bengals didn't get up in his face. They didn't press him. They let him get a free release off the line, and whether he was lined up outside or in the slot, it created problems. The Bears, you would have to assume, are going to try and get Allen Robinson more involved in the game plan on Sunday, which means the Bengals need to be a little more physical and disrupt the rhythm and timing of the Bears' offense, need to get Allen Robinson off of his spot. Because if they don't, this could be one of those 9 or 10 catch, 120-yard, 1 touchdown games for Allen Robinson, and the Bears win. And then offensively, I think for Joe Mixon, get him a number of touches of at least 25. At least 25 touches, maybe 20 runs, 5 receptions. He was a key to what they did, getting out to that lead on Sunday against the Vikings. He's one of the key cogs in this Bengals offense. Got to deploy him, force the Bears to defend the run, make them honest, because there are certainly opportunities available against this Bears secondary. For the Chicago Bears, you got to throw the ball more than 15 yards more than once in an NFL game. How stunning the stat was to see that the Bears attempted 1 pass of longer than 15 yards in the entire game Sunday. That even includes when they're down 20 points with a little over 3 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. The fuck do you have to lose at that point? And you're still running flat passes and out patterns and curls and all this other shit? For context, no other team in the NFL in week 1 had fewer than 4 throws of 15 or more yards. The Bears had 1. The fuck good does it do to have added speed to the receiving room to go along with Darnell Mooney and guys like Demary Byrd, Marquise Goodwin? You have these guys with speed. Use them! And the only way to use them is throw the ball down the field. Second key to victory is get in Joe Burrow's face and knock him around. The Bears, in theory, are supposed to be able to generate a pass rush that could cause some problems and disrupt the rhythm and timing of opposing quarterbacks. Sure, it would be nice to be able to see that. Here is an opportunity where they can. If the Bears want to win this game, we don't need excuses from Bears fans about how Khalil Mack is getting held every time or he's getting double-teamed every time. We need Khalil Mack to play like fucking Khalil Mack, like he's being paid to play like Khalil Mack, and be Khalil Mack and be a disruptor and a game wrecker. Stop with the excuses and the bullshit. Find a way to get it done. Be nice to see Robert Quinn live up to his contract for a goddamn change. This team has invested a lot in their front seven. It's time for them to step up and show that they can do something. Show that they are worth some of the money. We already know Eddie Jackson clearly isn't worth the fucking money. He ain't covering shit, and he sure as hell ain't tackling anybody. But those are the keys for both of these teams as I kind of look at it. You could do more in-depth analysis, but I think those are some of the key ones. When I look at this matchup, a lot of this points to me like this is a perfect space where Cincinnati could come in and upset the Bears, even though I would question how much of an upset this really is, just because the money has laid a little more on Chicago doesn't automatically mean anything. Like, you look at it and you say it's a 3-point spread in favor of Chicago. That means home field advantage usually given 2.5 to 3. It means you're accounting for the home field advantage. The problem is with that, there's no home field advantage for the Bears because they went 3-5 at home in 2020. If anything, this should be a pick'em game or maybe Chicago by half a point or one, and that's it. 3 even feels like a really generous spread here, if I'm really being honest. The one thing that might give you some hope if you're a Bears fan is that the Bengals struggled to beat the Vikings, and the Bears can routinely in recent years beat the Vikings. So if you're looking at common opponents and common success, like, you feel good about that. The Bears, in theory, on paper, have a much better overall roster than the Bengals, but that's on paper. That doesn't account for the deficiencies of Sean Desai, the defensive coordinator, and most importantly and notably of all, Matt Nagy, the head coach. To me, like, I don't really give a crap about this game unless it involves Justin Fields, because, again, that's the only thing that's supposed to matter. It is so stupid that this team is playing we don't want to see him start until maybe week 4 against Detroit at the earliest. Why? Why would you give up 3 games in Justin Fields' development? This is fucking stupid. And the worst thing of all is you can look at this game on Sunday and say this is exactly the type of game that an Andy Dalton quarterbacked, Matt Nagy coach team would win. They would do just enough to beat a mediocre to bad team to where they can deflect some of the heat for another week. Be like, hey, look, we rebounded from the week 1 loss, and that's shellacking. It means that we're not so far off, and that's why I think the Bears win, because it does nothing to help them. It provides no value. It's freaking stupid, and that's exactly when the mediocrity of the McCaskey mindset and way creeps in, and these are the types of games that they win. I do expect the Bears to be a little more prolific or a little more powerful and efficient on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to the passing game. I'd expect them to intentionally seek out some opportunities to throw the ball deep. It might even be in their dumb Dick Fields gimmick packages. They might have him throw deep once or twice. What a novel fucking concept. The guy that can chuck it down the field. Let's let him chuck it down the field a couple of times. So I'm going to pick the Bears to win this one 23-19. I think they do cover the spread. And if they don't, then my Jeff Jinx lives, and hopefully we get closer to Justin Fields being the starting quarterback, because, again, I want to emphasize with this Bears season, none of these individual games on their own right now mean a damn thing. Every single one of these games is stupid until Justin Fields is the starting quarterback.